Hey everyone, Lee here. It's Saturday night and it's raining outside, the kind of weather I like, and so it's the kind of weather to get me to read another chapter of my novel, Compulsion. This is chapter 4. As John and Janet were 1 block away from his mother's house, he remembered suddenly the one party he had attended with his family. Harold used Walter's name for a few months when Rose accused him of mischief, and he did not want to take the blame. Since he used Walter's name today, that was an indication something sneaky had happened. Chances were Harold did not need an operation, and he knew it. If he wanted John to accompany him, there must have been another situation in the midst. John recollected details concerning that embarrassing party. Everything had been fine until Zachary made fun of him. For a long time afterwards, he could not help feeling as though he had lost an opportunity. Whether or not Janet had been told John liked her, he should not have let that get in his way. She had walked out of the house and stood by his side of the car window, waving urgently at him. Her facial expression had been intensely desperate, and as the car drove off he felt a combination of relief and loss. Relief was from a momentary feeling of escape. Loss was from understanding he might never regain that chance. As he had walked around the room where the party was held, he peered occasionally at her. A few times she gazed at him and was about to say something, but then he would quickly turn his head and dismiss the possibility. During one moment, she had stood by one wall as if removing herself from the other guests. When he saw where she was standing, she looked directly at him with her hands reaching out as if she wanted to grab him. Her expression seemed either desperate or mocking. Her gesture had happened before Zachary wanted to introduce him to her. Perhaps she could have asked Zachary to approach him. If that was so, Zachary's tactic had been planned. He had taken cues to lure John over to her. When that did not work, she approached him in the kitchen. He wondered if she thought about him later or if that night had been a temporary indulgence. As far as the party was concerned, he would never recapture the chance to do things differently. Ironically, the woman with him now was named Janet, and her blouse was tucked in. He could make assumptions on what could have transpired at the party based on the behavior of Janet the lawyer and how everything about the two were alike. Now, John looked at her to distinguish similarities and differences. She had the same woman's hair color, facial features, and dressing style. Uh-oh, he now realized. He was with Janet from the party. What should he do? He at least had his answer as to how she might have acted if he had decided not to leave with his uncle. Did she recognize him when she left her office? She had said there were details she would not yet explain. He wondered if the reason she was gripping his hand was so she could prevent him from running away like he had at Walter's house. If Harold was using Walter's name, was he also involved? However, though he knew Janet was the woman from the party, she had not said so. To that extent, she could have been a different woman. John tended to resolve issues not from logic, but by mental convenience. He opted usually for the least awkward conclusion, but there was no least awkward option. She was gripping his hand and not letting go. When they approached the apartment complex where his mother and his uncle's family lived, he stopped walking and so did she. He asked, Did you recognize me from somewhere before?" She smiled. "I see your memory is coming back. You acted like you didn't recognize me, so I figured I would wait and see how long it took you to remember." "Well, I'm sorry I ran away that time. I felt awkward." "I understood." I'm not like that now. If you want to let go of my hand, I won't suddenly leave. I'd like to talk and get to know you." "That's sweet. The only problem is I can't let go of your hand." "Why can't you?" "It's a decision I made. So you could technically let go of my hand if you wanted to, but you just have decided not to do so." "Correct." "How long is this going to last?" "Always." John was nervous. "Are you saying you're going to hold on forever?" "I know it sounds really awkward, but I've made my decision and I'm sticking with it." "This is completely crazy. What do you plan to do? How can you live your life and handle everything you have to handle while staying attached to me?" She sighed. "I don't feel like I have any direction, and I don't have a purpose unless I'm grounded to you. I felt that way when I saw you at Walter's party, and I kept hoping I'd see you again so I could make our bond official." He would wait until nighttime when she fell asleep, and then he would disengage his hand and leave. For now, he would humor her by pretending to go along with the plan and letting her think they could stay like that. He said, "Well, I do like you. Maybe this could work out." She nodded. "I already talked to Luke from the office, and I showed him that I'm attached to you. Your family saw it also. If you can handle what's about to happen when you enter my mother's house, you can endure anything." "That sounds frightening. What can I expect?" "Anything and everything. My uncle and his family could be visiting, or there. Her place is not clean. My uncle has a couple of dogs, and for reasons I could never understand, he sometimes brings them to her house when they mess up things even more." She shrugged. "Let's just go." They walked up one flight of stairs and towards Rose's apartment, B40. He pointed and said, "That's it." "Does your uncle live next door?" "Yes." "How can he manage with his wheelchair?" "He can walk. He just rides that thing for convenience. Plus, there's an elevator at the end of the hall." She nodded. "That's good. I noticed the second floor where we are now is cleaner than the bottom level." "Wait until you enter her apartment." He knocked on the door. Christine answered. "Hi, John, come on in." They walked inside. Somehow, beyond John's understanding, the place was clean and organized. However, he noticed Christine was alone. He asked, "How did the place get like this?" "Aunt Rose asked me to clean it. I said I would do it if she made us some real food when she got back. I threatened to bring the dogs so they could run around and knock things over. She finally agreed to get the ingredients to make a cheeseburger, including mayonnaise, mustard, ketchup, and relish." "Wow, I thought you didn't like that stuff." "I play up to her because she can get really mean when I criticize her cooking. When I said I hated butter and gravy, that was a lie. I was afraid she wouldn't pay for the meal if I said what I was feeling. My mom doesn't really care if there's flavor or not. Food isn't her favorite thing. She just eats because it's a part of living." "Where is everyone else?" "Your mom is at the store. I don't know where Dad is. Mom is somewhere walking. She just sort of wandered off." "That's interesting. She doesn't like to take walks usually." "I know. I asked her where she was going, and she smiled and waved as if I already knew, and she was just saying she'd see me later, except she didn't do that." "Did you ask your dad where he was going?" "No. He's pretending he's Walter, so I just usually let him alone and wait until he stops." Janet frowned. "Why does he pretend he's Walter? I heard him back there, and I thought that was odd." Christine said, "Ever since Dad stopped working at the hospital, he's been going downhill mentally. They forced him to leave because he was doing something weird. One of the nurses saw me when I went to the post office and we talked." John asked, "Did they mention what he did?" "They didn't want to tell me, but If you remember, he bought the wheelchair 2 days after. I remember that. How could he afford it? He had saved up a lot of money in the bank. Your mom has given him food money without her knowing he isn't broke. I haven't told her because I think she's screwy and deserves it. I'm thinking he's not as dumb as he tries to appear. The part of him that gets into wheelchair accidents is not all there, but I agree he's sneaky. Janet said, "That's how I feel about life. People are always hiding something. When you're a child growing up, people tell you one thing and then they tell you another. I have seen people swear they are being truthful, and then they confess to something that's the complete opposite later." Christine said, "I heard my dad talking on the phone to a guy named Spencer Tilden. He called him Sweetie. I don't know what that means, but it seems like my dad could be gay." Janet said, "Wow, I had no idea Spencer knew Harold. I told him I needed to find the man who made me feel complete, and that's you, John. But there was no way I would have tied him to the Goldmans. I'm even more convinced now that we can never separate. Don't ask me why, because I cannot answer that, but I do know everything will fall apart into a chaotic mess if I let go of your hand." John laughed. "Christine, what do you think of what Janet just said?" Christine shrugged. "I've been to San Francisco. Nothing surprises me." A knock was heard at the door. Christine answered it. Harold was outside. He asked, "Why are you home?" She said, "I'm not. I'm at Aunt Rose's." He shrugged. "That's just a minor technicality. What I mean is, why are you in someone's home instead of being outside like you should be?" Christine sighed. "I'm cleaning up Aunt's house so she can get some food with salt and pepper and flavors." Harold smiled. "Great. Harold would like that. Let me guess, you're Walter, right?" "Right." "Dad, you don't have to pretend to be Walter around me. I like good food just as much as anyone else. I'm on your side." Harold shook his head. "That's not the only reason why I'm doing it, because of Rose. I'm trying to convince myself that the things Walter told me as being true are really so. I can't bring myself to believe him, but we've become good friends, and before we spend time together, I like to put myself in his frame of mind." Christine frowned. "What does that mean, spending time together?" "I don't have to tell you what that means." "I'd like to hope that if I don't ask you to come out and say it, it wouldn't be what I think it is." "I'd like that too." Janet rolled her eyes. "Now you understand, John, why I'm with you? This is consistent. Your uncle goes from person to person with no regard to honesty. My partner, Luke, is out to harm someone who is out to harm him, and I wouldn't be surprised if they all know about it and it's just one big game. I'm not going to play the game. They might try to make me play, but they will never get me. I will be secure with you. We will flesh them out and show them for what they really are. The energy between us will get stronger. We'll be protected from them." Harold wiggled around in his wheelchair. "Now that's just great. It sounds like a plan to make me out like a fool when my friends show up." Christine sighed. "What friends are those, Dad?" "Peter Marvin, Spencer Tilden, and a man named Oliver Bentley are coming over so we can listen to some of Beethoven." John said, "If it was Brahms, I would like it better." Harold yelled, "I'm using a euphemism, you little crumb. I don't want any of you here. You'll be spoiling what I've got going." A knock sounded on the door. Christine yelled, "Just come on in." Oliver Bentley went inside. Behind him was Spencer Tilden and Peter Marvin. Oliver widened his eyes. He asked, "Were there plans for other people to be here?" Peter said, "Harold plays games. Some of the games I like, and some of them, like this one, I can do without." We're not going to do anything nasty while all these other people are here. Christine mock pouted. But I want to watch. I want all these people here. Harold kicked his feet up and down. My daughter is a freak. I don't want her to see us doing what we want to do. John laughed. I don't want to see it, but I can't speak for everybody. Oliver said, in my time, many years ago, people did things the morally decent way, behind closed doors. Nowadays, everything is out in the open. If you're indulging in something shameful, make it non-shameful by pretending you're not doing it. John said, maybe Harold can pretend he isn't here. Spencer said, I am quite looking forward to seeing Harold without his shirt on. Maybe I can sit on top of him. Harold got out of his wheelchair and walked in Rose's bedroom and slammed the door. He said, I'll be in here. There's some things my family doesn't need to see. Spencer said, perhaps Harold is right. We are 3 lovebirds who don't want to share worms. Can you all leave us alone? John shrugged. Does that sound good to you, Janet? Janet nodded. Very good. Christine said, the 3 of you can go into the bedroom. I promise I won't look. I'm going to watch television. I cleaned this place up. I'm ready for my cheeseburger. Spencer laughed. You hear that, darling Harold? She wants a cheeseburger. I also want my cheeseburger. You know what I mean by cheeseburger, right? Harold screamed, Shut up, you miserable punk! Why are you making it obvious? Spencer said, We haven't yet, but we're going to. Spencer, Oliver, and Peter entered the bedroom. Peter winked and shut the door. John and Janet walked outside. He asked, So, what's next? This is a bit of an adventure. Where should we go? She said, I guess we can visit Walter and see what he says about all this, and then we can go to my place. He asked, Do you think Walter has answers? She said, They all have answers, and all the answers are evasive. He asked, How about your neighbor Zachary? He's an exception.